Hello and welcome back to Far Beyond the World. We'll be continuing where we left off, which, if you recall, is after having that interesting conversation with Aerof and that one other wolf whose name still eludes me because I'm, technically still recording these intros and outros back to back to back. So, I still don't remember the name. But yeah, so obviously we will not get to find out what happens with, politically with, the tribe. But we will find out something important about Ranok and Tano. And while you don't get to see it, something spicy does happen. But at the end, something you guys are not... that you did not want to happen is probably going to happen. Actually, it does happen because I already know it happens, but still. So, sit tight and enjoy the shit show that's about to happen. So, yeah. I think I drifted off because once I open my eyes again, everything is done. I watch Ranok, who's now only on his pants, stepping out of the greenery with a bludgeoning wineskin. Where were you? I mumbled sleepily. There's a small spring nearby. Since we ran out of wine, I stocked up on water. Oh, good thinking. My nose twitches at a lovely smell coming from the fireplace. What's that? I caught some rabbit and found some wild carrots, he says with a satisfied smile and a look at the bubbling pot with worry. How long was I out for? Not that long. The bugger practically walked in on me. He laughs and I scramble to my feet and approach the pot. With any luck, this should be our last meal on the road, so I want it to be filling to give you a little boost. Thanks. I say through a smile and take a seat near the fire as he ladles a generous portion into a bowl. The warmth feels so wonderful on my skin, and I take a hold of the hot stew with glee. So warm. I'm sorry it's rabbit again. You must be getting pretty sick of it by now. Oh, shush. I scoff at him in amusement, taking a greedy spoonful. I'm grateful for anything you provide, and I'm simply glad to fill my belly. We enjoy the meal in silence as I'm still slowly trying to collect myself from the short-lived slumber. But the stew hits the spot perfectly. I don't think I was ever this tired, but somehow this exhaustion feels nice. It makes me feel accomplished, and I appreciate moments of respite like this so much more. It's like this whole experience put color into the world around me. I finish my bowl with a sigh of content, licking my fingers clean and watching the wolf strip last bits of meat from the bone. Once we're both done, we put away the dishes and splay ourselves comfortably against the nearby tree. I take a deep gulp from the water skin, crisp spring water quenching my thirst after a long day's march. We sit huddled together, with me idly poking at the flames with a stick. The night is cool, but not too cold, with the fire pit gently caressing our skins. I give us some time to simply enjoy the moment, but once I see him slowly dozing off with his head now fully resting on top of mine, I decide to speak up. You didn't have to go to all that trouble. We could have eaten what's left and call it a night. It's the least I could do. He shrugs and I place a paw on his shoulder. I know you're all about putting up a front, but I bet you two are at least a little bit tired. He smiles, pulling me in closer. Maybe, but this way I keep my mind busy. Besides, this was meant as a little bit of a distraction from a rather difficult conversation we probably should have. Oh? I raise my brow at him, and he visibly cringes. It's about Father and Vitri and the whole shitstorm, as you put it, back at home. Basically everything Aerof and Talisman brought up. I really had enough of politics for one day. I chuckle between the gulps of water. I barely followed their conversation as it was. Besides, he seemed to sulk each time the subject popped up. I'm too tired to drag our moods down. Can it wait until Strandbard? I guess. The wolf shrugs unconvincingly, and I'm not sure how to rate that. Do you want to talk about it now? Not really. He sighs heavily. I'd rather enjoy the time we have left to ourselves. My thoughts exactly. I nod in agreement. Besides, I'd much rather talk about you and Tano than your father and Vitrir and that growing number of question marks surrounding them. Me and Tano? He blurts out, and I can swear there's a twinge of fear in his eyes. I'm sorry if this comes out of the blue, I mutter softly, drawing his groggy attention. I know it might be personal, but I was meaning to ask you about this for a while now. The wolf croons, his coarse voice reverberating through his throat against my skin. Would you be able to tell me what happened between the two of you? Your infamous fallout was bothering me for a week when you were away, and now that Aerof brought it up, I really don't want to talk about that. He pulls away slightly, his muzzle regaining alertness. It's all in the past anyway. I'm not trying to reopen any old wounds, but I really would like to get to know you more, past and all. Easy for you to say, you don't have a past to weigh you down. Ranok scoffs playfully in my direction, but I frown, and he quickly retracts the statement. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to downplay it. I just envy you in that regard. It must feel liberating. It feels lonely and empty more than anything. I know very little about you and even less about myself, and I can't help it on my front. It would be nice to change it on yours. I fix my expectant gaze on him, and the wolf groans, rubbing his neck in annoyance. Ugh, I had hoped we would avoid this conversation altogether. Why? Because I'm afraid you'll think less of me. How could I? I give him an encouraging smile. I doubt you did anything that could change my opinion of you. And even if you did, you still have a credit of trust and sympathy far exceeding anyone else's. Despite my honest words, he looks worriedly into the fire, and I place my hand on his shoulder. I spent nearly a week without you. In that time, I realized that despite not knowing you all that well, I want to be there for you, just as you have been there for me. In love or friendship, it doesn't really matter. I shake my head in amusement. All I want is to accept you for who you are, baggage and all. The good, the bad, and the frisky. My voice takes on a playful tone, and I bite my lower lip, drawing a reluctant chuckle from the male. Who are you, and what did you do with that trembling little kid I left at my cottage? Don't change the subject with backhanded flattery. I smirk, giving him a more serious look. Can't blame a wolf for trying. Was there something romantic between you and Tano? Is it that obvious? He raises his brow at me, and I shrug awkwardly. Not at first, no, but the more I heard from others, the more apparent it became. What happened? I ask, and at first it seems like he's not going to give me an answer. The wolf straightens up and looks into the fire, allowing a moment of silence to take over, until he finally breaks it in a hushed voice. Tano was my friend. A very close one. Closer than Vol? Don't ever tell him that. He snorts, but a heavy sigh quickly escapes his lips. But yes, he was. No one ever got as close to me as he did. Until I met you, that is. He bops his head in my direction. Tano saw me, just like you do, for who I am, a wolf who struggles to find his place in the tribe. The more comfortable we became in each other's company, the more brazen and touchier we got. He made me discover things about myself I never dared to imagine. He made me realize that I was somewhat different than others. And that he was different too. The tone of his voice makes it clear that he is still struggling with that side of him. I feel saddened as the wolf hangs his head between his knees, looking resigned into the dirt. Now with you added into the mix, it's beyond a doubt that I enjoy males as much as females. I even seem to have a type. He scoffs, aiming to lighten the mood, and I smile. Did you and Tano ever... I find myself stumbling on the words, driven by my own curiosity. Not fully, but we did... stuff. Sorry. The wolf mumbles apologetically as I shake my head. Whatever for. It's not like we know I'm a first-timer. Yeah. We were quite young and having sex. It clouded things, made me less sensible, and I allowed myself to move too fast. It was intoxicating. He was intoxicating. But... I ask, drawing a wince from his muzzle. It's really hard for him to open up about this, but eventually he speaks up. Tano wanted more than I could possibly offer. I should have known better. I knew better. He chastises himself, poking angrily at his forehead. I knew who he was, and how he acted. I knew him better than he himself did. I knew he was a pup that sees everything as a fucking game, and I still fell for it. Fell for what? His pretend maturity. I should have known he would not be able to handle things. What did he do? One night, he confessed his love, and I confessed mine. I did love him at the time. Ranok looks at me with all the seriousness he can muster, and I nod. I believe you. So, he proposed we elope, run off to some Tigiri town, and live our lives happily ever after in an imaginary bliss. It seemed so outlandish and so far-fetched, I thought it was just a heat-of-the-moment talk. So, like an idiot, I humored him and said that it did sound nice. The wolf cringes and I have an inkling where this is headed. He always aims to please, never wanting to disappoint, even when sometimes it's the right thing to do. I smile at him empathically and rub his arm, trying to give him courage to continue, and he does. As I said, I should have known better. Just as I thought, he never brought it up again and everything returned to normal. We did our duty, we met in secret, and everything was good. For the first time in my life, I was happy. And I did feel alone. He sighs with a soft smile and my heart goes out to him. Despite not being there to witness his loneliness, I felt it through his desperate need for proximity. Having Tano around must have been a blessing he'd do anything to keep as long as possible. But that's when the story deviates from my expectation and his tone sours. Over time, I noticed that Tano demanded more and more of me. I began neglecting my duty. I was shedding off my responsibilities, all to appease him and give us some more quality time. Same for him. It was bad, really bad. He muttered, rubbing his temples in clear frustration at his past failings. It had gotten to a point where he nearly lost his position as an alpha. That was a wake-up call for me, and I thought it would be one for him too. He says in a defeated tone. When he said he wanted to talk urgently, I hoped he wanted to work out how to fix things, so we met in secret underneath his name tree. At worst, I thought he finally saw sense and wanted to break it off. It would have hurt to lose what we had, but at least we could still remain friends and save our positions in the tribe. We were close to being discovered, with him getting more obvious and brazen with each passing week. It's as if he was tempting fate and trying to see how far he can push our luck. It would have spelled doom to both of us. I nod in understanding. But Tano didn't see reason. Instead, he appeared almost insane. Out of nowhere, after 6 months of never bringing it up, he demanded that we run off that very night. We were to steal some gold from the villa and simply be on our way. The wolf scoffs mockingly, and I look towards the heavy chest. I can't believe Tano would have gone that far to suggest robbing his own people. It wasn't even formed as a suggestion or a request. It was a decision he made, claiming I've promised to follow through. But I never made such a promise. He shakes his head and I place my hand on his shoulder. He heard what he wanted to hear and my opinion in the end didn't matter. Why would it? I wasn't a person at that point. I was an accessory. Subtle tremors rock his body and I can't decide whether they're caused by anger or pain. His expression is equally dubious as his muzzle struggles to contain a slight snarl from appearing. He should have known that I would never be able to leave my life in some Tigiri backwater with the knowledge that I have turned my back on my family and friends. My tribe. My people. he says spitefully, locking his gaze in some distant vision of Tano. How could he think that I would steal from my own father and live off of that ill-gained money? Realizing he's slowly losing composure, the wolf cuts off and throws his gaze to the side. I try not to look at him directly, giving him some needed space to collect himself. He blinks away the moisture from his eyes and shakes his head, taking a deep breath. Once he releases all that pent-up tension through a sigh, he looks back to me with an apologetic expression. I'm sorry. No, it's fine. I shake my head in protest. What is he even apologizing for? I couldn't believe what he was saying. Of all the wolves, how could he be the one to shrug it off so easily? What do you mean? I ask, and he blinks, as if realizing he had gone off topic. Ugh, sorry. It's a different story and it doesn't really matter. What matters is that I was wrong. He didn't know me at all, and turns out I didn't know him either. He took my idle responses and agreements, while I overestimated his actual feelings for me. The wolf sighs once again, hiding his muzzle in the palm of his paws. It was Vol and Verissa all over again. All we were ever to each other was our respective roles in the tribe. All Tano wanted and cared about was having the son of the chief in his pocket. How else would he get to pilfer the tribe's treasury? I should have never humored his delusions. I'm not picking a side here, I muttered quietly, ruffling his neck fluff. But Tano doesn't strike me as evil. Calculative, desperate, maybe, but not cruel for cruelty's sake. I do believe he was misguided, but... I pause, not sure if it's my place or even time to challenge him. What? The wolf asks, and I decide to follow Erof's hard truths policy. You do tend to dance around the truth a lot, trying to protect other people's feelings. Had you simply told him no the first time around... How could I have possibly known he was being serious? He snaps defensively. Had he brought it up again, I would have said no, but he didn't. To me, it was just pop talk. Am I to treat everything everyone says literally? No, you're right. I'm sorry. I sigh, looking away into the fire, and the wolf hides his muzzle back into his paws. I might be projecting my own insecurities again, applying my experience to a situation I didn't witness. Even knowing you barely 2 weeks, I would never have fooled myself that you would run off with me. I'm not saying I'm blameless. We were both to blame, that's true. He concedes through a sigh, raising his head to face me. But there's a difference between omission and delusion. I tried to reason with him, begged even. I wanted us to stay together and continue as we were, but he refused. He got angry and harsh words were exchanged. I felt like the only thing left for me to do was to break it off. Ranok pauses, looking to the side as if trying to reason with himself now. We clearly brought out the worst in each other, and I couldn't watch him throw his life away like this. Not because of me. So I did the hardest thing I ever had. I told him it was over, in as plain words as I possibly could muster. And then, I walked away. He hangs his head again. It broke my heart to leave him huddled and crying in the woods, but it had to be done. I frown, trying to imagine the scene, and despite understanding Ranok's side of the story, I can't help but feel a little sorry for the white wolf, even if he brought this on himself. I just sit there, uncertain what to say, and Ranok simply continues. It took all my strength to collect myself and go back to the feast, appearing normal and happy. I'm so sorry. Don't be. Not yet. He shakes his head with a forced chuckle. If you think that's the end of the story, you clearly don't know Tano. He's the ride or die sort of person. What did he do? I push my hand against my lips, getting unnerved by what might come next. Knowing Tano as little as I do, I still can see that wolf can be quite unpredictable at times. After some hours passed, he arrived at the feasting grounds drunk and very feisty. He was picking fights left and right and center, Delran, always the older brother to us all, stood up and tried to pacify him, but Tano had none of it. He pushed him away and approached our table, stealing Vol's mug, emptying it in a long, disgusting chug that stained his fur all the way to his pants. I cringed, suffering secondhand embarrassment. He must have been a mess, but can I blame him? He was just dumped. Ease. Vol was pissed, more so when Tano simply threw the mug back at him, squaring off. What the hell? He said, "You want to do this, big guy? Come on, I've got nothing to lose." He mimics Tano's mannerisms, but quickly frowns in clear distress. It stung to see him like this. It hurt to know that I was the cause of it, and just as Vol was about to accept the challenge, I interceded. I asked him to let it go, saying that Tano had simply too much to drink, but that's when his attention shifted to me. Right then and there, he confronted me with all the cards in the open. Oh no. He proclaimed his love for me, revealed that we planned to elope together and be happy away from this bigoted, close-minded shithole. And then? He pauses, pulling me to the edge of my seat. And then what? He crawled onto the table, brushing off the food and drink as he went and leaped at me, kissing in front of everyone. Oh God! I exclaimed in utter horror. I thought their fallout would have been something spectacular for the village to be abuzz with to this day, but never I'd imagined Tano would have gone this far. I was stunned. I didn't mean to be cold, but the shock aided me in saving what little I could of our joint reputation. You must understand, if I didn't do anything, we would have both gotten banished. He sounds panicked, clearly worried I might think less of him, that whatever came next came out of spite or malice, but I know him better. Of course. I say reassuringly, nodding in agreement. I pushed him away, wiped my lips clean and laughed it off. Vol didn't see the humor in that scene and hurled Tano violently into the dirt. He sighs, clearly not enjoying reliving that night. To be fair, I began to regret asking in the first place. It sounds like a nightmare. Everyone was looking at me with confusion and fright. Up to that point, we were very close, so I had to make up a story to banish any speculation. I panicked. The wolf cringes and looks away in shame. I made up a lie that Tano's advances were rejected by a female, and that he's been drowning his sorrows in my ale, crying over my shoulder. That's when Korra rushed to my side, knowing full well what's at stake. He locks his glossy eyes with me. I think deep down she knew the truth. She just couldn't watch her two friends' little secret unravel, so she leaped into the fray like a true she-wolf she is. He smiles, a clear hint of pride directed at the towny female. She backed me up, stating that it was she who rejected Tano, and because she chose me instead, he got incredibly bitter and sought ways to get back at us. We both played him off as a drunkard boy with a broken heart who simply had too much to drink and wanted to prank me. It was cruel. Ranok sighs angrily, clearly unhappy with himself. It was cruel, but not that far from the truth. You shouldn't feel bad. You were saving him from himself. By breaking his heart twice over? He asks mockingly, his eyes filling up with tears once again. Why does saving others always mean breaking their hearts? That question catches me off guard. That look in his eyes still haunts me, but if forced, I would do it all over again. I cannot even imagine. Oh God, Ranok, I'm so sorry. I decide to finally embrace him, and the wolf pats my arm in gratitude for the gesture. I cannot believe Tano would have resorted to public blackmail to force someone out of the closet in front of all of his peers and family. It's disgusting. A person's sexuality is no one's secret to reveal. Not like this, not to coerce him to remain at your side. But despite feeling angered and disgusted with Tano, there's still a large part of me that feels pity. Losing Ranok must have felt horrible, almost as if you were cornered. And cornered beasts tend to lash out. I really don't know what to make of the story. Ranok's and Korra's lie might have saved his life, but I doubt Tano would see it this way. We stay in our embrace for a moment, while the wolf takes all of this turmoil and pain and packs it back deep into a dark corner of his psyche where it should have remained undisturbed. Their rifts run deeper than I could have possibly imagined, but it's clear Ranok still holds some deep sentiment towards the white male. He constantly goes out of his way to defend him. Perhaps it's just guilt, or perhaps a tiny part of him still loves him. Korra was right. They're both at fault, but Tano being who he is doesn't make bridging that gap any easier. Eventually, Ranok exhales heavily and pulls away. Now you know the truth, and why he's so resentful when it comes to me. Despite managing to save our hides, his reputation was harder to recover. After all, he was the one who kissed me, and I did not reciprocate. With Korra's made-up rejection added to the mix, it made him look very undesirable. But he left us no choice, and it was either ridicule or banishment. Actually, I think secretly he wanted us to get banished. He says in a sad tone. It would have forced the original plan onto you. The wolf nods in resignation. Since then he was secretly mocked. He feels betrayed and made a fool, and rightfully so. But I feel used and manipulated all the same, and that's something he never even apologized for. There is a clear tone of bitterness in his words, and I place my hand on top of his still shaky paw. To this day, he still thinks he's the one who lost everything, but I was no better off. I was happy with him, and we could have been happy together. But it wasn't enough, was it? With Tano, nothing is ever enough. He must have it all, or none can have anything. So, here we are. He shrugs, splaying his paws in defeat. I think you two need to work this out. I mumble worriedly, but he just throws me a stern look. There's nothing to work out. Tano always wants his way, and he always forces it no matter the consequence. I know I said you're my first real choice, and now given all the information, you might think that it was a lie, that I had one with him. I listen to him intently as he infers some of my concerns. But that was an impossible choice to make. It wasn't real. It was a childish self-delusion. He sneers. I would have never shrugged off my duty or my responsibility on a whim or for a flight of fancy. True relationships are built between people who understand their place in the world and who want to share it. Trying to find love while running away from my responsibility is like building on quicksand. I nod at his apt summary. I wholeheartedly agree. You can't run away from who you are, and you cannot let others strong-arm you into change. That's why I chose you. He smiles weakly. You came into my life with no expectations or demands. In fact, you were at my mercy. Saving your life was a choice I made while you were unconscious. You didn't ask, nor demanded it. You've also shown such immense gratitude for the most benign of things. I know that your memory is partially to blame, but you wanted to be there for me without knowing who I am or even caring for my position in life. You made me feel safe, and I'm certain that despite our precarious situation, you won't force me to choose between you and my people. Because above all else, you took the time to understand me and who I am and what's important to me. Of course. I nod again. I would never seek to divide your loyalties or attention. I'm here to just be there for you, to help you along the path you've been set upon. All of this, turn in your tribe, your family and friends, is what makes you, you. It's a package deal, and I would not have it any other way. I'm sorry you were forced to make such a choice before. That's not what love is. Thank you. Thank you for listening and understanding. He leans his muzzle in and plants a soft lick on my cheek. Thank you for sharing. I reply, sinking into his neck fluff, enjoying his now muskier than before scent. As I remain there, I think of something to lighten the mood. Tano's pup name is Snowball, isn't it? I ask teasingly, and the wolf blinks in surprise, looking away and acting as if he didn't hear the question. But that change in his posture indicates slight tension, which means I'm right. I take it as a yes. Don't ever call him that, he says in an oddly pleading tone. It's not a command, but a thoughtful request, and I'm taken by surprise. Others seem to do it all the time. They shouldn't. He sighs heavily. It's a sign of lack of respect, and it's all fallout of his drunken confession. I might not like him because he's gotten petty and bitter and constantly tries to get back at people, but at the same time, it's hard not to take some responsibility for it. Somewhere, there is still the wolf that I used to love. I nearly choke up at his words. Such a good boy. I know that each time he's pup named, it hurts his pride. And now, that's all he's got left. Even at odds, he's still mindful of others. Perhaps it's not what I meant to do here, but if there's even a chance to fix their friendship, I'd like to help if possible. I don't know if Tano really moved on. His actions at the feast seem now falling into the jealous ex territory. And I'm not sure Ranok is very much over it either. Maybe he moved on from the relationship, but not the breakup. That loss will haunt him for a long while, and how couldn't it? I can't even begin to imagine how I would have dealt with such a shit show. I thought you were impossibly brave after you told me of the battle. Now I know that you're all kinds of brave. I wish I was made of a sturdy stuff as you are. You think I'm brave? He snorts, pulling me away and looking into my eyes. His green emeralds shine in the light of the fireplace as he leans in to give me yet another lick. Life seems to constantly send the same blows my way, and each time I falter. I'm a half-collapsed shack propped up on stilts. Well then, I don't mind me a fixer-upper. I chuckle, drawing a reluctant smile from the wolf. He leans into me, and I reach with my hands behind his head, scratching at his fluff idly. His tense body just shows how much stress and burden overloads this poor guy. I wish I could somehow relieve it, but I am a loss for words. All I can do is what I proclaimed to want to do in the first place, be there for him. So I resign myself to simply stay in his tight embrace, just enjoying the feeling of being wanted and needed. We stay like that for a while, until I notice his bulge expanding slightly into his pants and pressing against me. I'm sorry. He pulls away embarrassed, but my hands guide him right back. Don't be. It's a compliment if anything. His green shimmering emeralds lock with me in slight disbelief, and I shiver. It's as if he's peering into my very soul, and then suddenly, he dives in for a kiss. I lean into him, pressing my body against his rock-hard frame. He's groping me, his massive paws cupping my butt cheeks, toying with them playfully as we continue to interlock our lips. His hold gets firmer, and he stands up, effectively lifting me up, and I wrap my legs around his waist. It's exhilarating to be held like this, cradled against his torso, and I groan with pleasure, feeling the bulge poking at my underside. He stumbles a few steps towards the tent, when finally, as if touched by a magic wand, his excitement vanishes, and he lets go. I fall to my feet, standing in front of him, completely dazed and confused. I can't. He mutters apologetically, but I simply grab his paw. It's fine. We don't have to go all the way. But, Caleb. No buts. I pout playfully. You've left me hanging once already. You know I want it. I whisper enticingly, gently groping his groin. And I know you want it too. Oh, by the moon. He groans as a shudder radiates across his entire body. His eyes dilate and his fur bristles as if electrified. My heart skips a beat when his primal gaze lands on me, but I do not fear him. Instead, I tug gently at his pants with a soft smile. Let's get that off. Are you sure? He asks in a surprisingly calm voice, his form frozen solid and ears honed in on me in anticipation of an answer. It's clear his instincts are slowly taking over, and I find it oh so exciting and simply exhale as I undo his pants. I'm certain he doesn't need more. The wolf pounces on me as if I were a cornered fawn, his muzzle sinking into my neck. His nipping at my skin gently, pricking it with his fangs until he leaves a red indentation, which he then licks over in an attempt to kiss them better. I melt into his form and surrender, allowing him to caress my most vulnerable spot. There's something undeniably erotic about a massive wolf man gliding his dagger-like fangs across your windpipe. It's an utter surrender to his most basic animal instincts. And I trust him to remain in control. Once he left several red spots, he licks his lips as if he's tasted the most delectable of treats and looks at me intently. Come. Just one word, that's all it takes for me to follow him into the tent. I love you too. I mutter reassuringly, uncertain what's actually going on, unwittingly causing the wolf to jump up in panic. What's the matter? Shit. I cannot do this. Not again. His voice becomes shakier, and I know now that something's wrong. He's wavering. I can feel it through his defeated posture. Ranok, it's okay. I mutter encouragingly, stroking his cheek, but he brushes my hand away. No, this isn't right. We shouldn't have done that. He sounds increasingly panicked, and I blink. Why wouldn't it be? You don't have to be ashamed. It's okay to have those feelings. It's not that. Well, what is it then? Because if it's no this effective nonsense again, you're not coming back with me. He spits out angrily through deep rattled breaths, as if it took all his strength to get it out of his chest. What do you mean? I'm taking you to Strandbard to leave you there. What? I pull myself away from him, sitting up and looking at the wolf, who avoids my gaze. My eyes gloss at the sight of his defeated expression. He's serious. You can't. I say pleadingly, putting my hands in his paw, but he retracts it, as if burned by my touch. I must. His coarse voice snaps in my direction. He's barely keeping composure. That's what my father wants. That's what he demands. Even if it were up to me, I would not knowingly drag you back there. How can you say that? You think this is some sort of den tale? How do you think the story would end? Ranok, what are you saying? Tears now flow freely from my eyes, two heavy streaks burdening my cheeks, and the wolf looks away in shame. He covers his crotch with a loincloth, trying to bring some dignity to the situation, but I'm long past that. I sit there, naked and sobbing, disbelief rocking my body. We need to face the reality of things. His hushed voice barely reaches my ears. Your life is in danger. Every day the noose gets tighter around your neck, and you tug at it like an oblivious pup. I didn't do anything. You've done plenty. His green eyes lock with me in anger, his accusatory tone blustering his resolve almost as if he sought courage to do what has to be done. Not only Aldris is infuriated with you, but now even FBtW wants you gone. My father was never even remotely religious. The only reason Verissa's bluff worked on him was the fact that it could cause a fuss. Well, you cause more than a fuss. The wolf throws his arms into the distance. More than half of the tribe just waits for an excuse to be done with you. With Andalt on the loose and Vol close to snapping your neck, our situation became untenable. You can't be serious. I barely speak up as the air is kicked out of my lungs. Your presence alone puts us all in danger. If somehow you manage to keep your head, there is still a war coming. You've heard yourself that my father might lose his position in part thanks to you. Should that happen, your death is all but certain. It's just a matter of when and by whose paw, and I won't watch you being executed. Especially not if my friends can be next to follow. How can you say this? You know it's true. His voice wavers again, and like a Goated beast, I decide to strike back. So you waited until I gave you a head to tell me this? The fuck? He cringes at the words, which means he knows how this looks. I tried to talk with you. I tried to stop. Not hard enough? I spit out. You're an asshole. How could you lie to me like this? What was all this carefree camping bullshit for? You could have just told me from the beginning what was happening. I knew you wouldn't take it well. So you just pretended that everything is fine? Duped me? No. Ranok hangs his head, locking his wearied gaze with the padding beneath us. I wanted to make sure that I would go through with it. If we talked it over in the village, there was a chance that you would have swayed me one way or another. So you just took the chance away from me? I lash out, tears cascading down my knees, causing the wolf to snap back. I cannot risk your life or anyone else's on a whim. Someone has to be the responsible one. And that someone always has to be me. You've promised to take me home. You promised me the very first night. And where is home exactly, huh? The wolf asks mockingly. You've shown no sign of actually recovering any memory. I cannot be saddled with you forever. Saddled? Is that what I am to you? A burden? You know what I mean. His anger wavers as his eyes desperately try to lock on anything else than me. No, I don't. You can't do this to me. I do it for you. He protests. Everyone's right. You stand far better chances of finding your place in this world in Strandbard than cooped up in my cottage. Is that what you say to yourself? I scoff in anger. That you're being selfless? Because to me it seems like you're just a coward who cannot truly commit to anything or anyone. I let my words hang, my chest rising and falling in quick succession. I cannot believe him. Why didn't you tell me? I demand, and he meets me with a defiant gaze. Because I didn't want our last few days to be ruined by this. I knew you'd be broken and bargaining each step of the way. You would be chipping at my resolve with each passing day until I finally gave in or snapped. He does everything he can to keep himself from breaking down. If I told you right away, those last few days would have turned into a nightmare. At least, I would have had time to come to terms with it, something you took away from me. You took away my right to say proper goodbyes with Vol, Verissa, Cora. And by keeping it until the last moment, you took away my right to be angry with you, because now, I'm ruining our final moments together. I force all of the spitefulness into my gaze, and the anger slowly boiling up, and the surface shuts down my waterworks. He's startled, seeing my little rattled chest going up and down while my teeth chatter in fury. You've lied and manipulated me. I now understand how Tano must have felt. Really? He asks, utterly stunned. You're going to use that against me? I told you this in confidence. I was not the villain in that story. His lips quiver and his eyes shine with clear hurt. But you're not the victim either. You forced me to face a done deal, just like he did to you. I'm in an impossible situation here. Oh, boo-hoo. I'm the one left without a choice. You're angry. I understand why you lash out, so I won't hold it against you. Don't. I clench my fists, trembling with anger like I've never felt before. Don't you high horse me. What does that even mean? He scoffs. I'm trying to make it as easy as... No, I can't do this. I cut him off, getting up on my feet and collecting my clothes. What are you doing? Getting away from you. I can't bear to look at your face. I walk towards the exit when his paw clenches around my wrist, stopping me in my tracks. You can't. It's not safe. Go to hell, Ranok. I try to yank myself free, but his hold stays firm. The wolf issues a warning growl and throws me onto the bedding. No! You'll stay right here! He thumps his feet in anger, towering above me, and for an instant I'm reminded he's a massive beastman with shining claws and fangs. I'm not going to spend the night with you. Fine. He snarls. If you insist on acting like a pup, then I'll leave. I won't have your blood on my paws in case something happens. Yes, we wouldn't want to add anything to your already heavy conscience. I jeer at him with all the nastiness that I can muster, melting away his anger and replacing it with deep and indescribable sadness. I'll just stay here, surrounded by your jizz. His green eyes lock with me for a moment, darting across my body in confusion, as if looking for the right words. But eventually the wolf gives up the search and simply sighs deeply, pulling on the tense cloth. Think what you must. Hate me if you will. His voice is low and devoid of life. I didn't want this. I tried to resist and be respectful, but I failed. That's on me. Letting you go is the hardest thing I have to do since Tano, but ultimately, I know it's the right thing. For everyone involved. Seriously, Ranok? Get the fuck out of here. I slam my fists into the bedding and the wolf abides. He picks up his loincloth and pants, leaving the tent with one last sad look in my direction. Once I'm alone, I allow my anguish to claim me, unloading wave after wave of tears and howling like an injured beast into the pillow. I'm in pain, and the anguish tremors rock my entire body. Once again, I'm thrown into a pit of despair. I'm in mourning. I'm mourning over the life I once had, and the one I imagined I could have. I'm grieving over losing the very person that just hurt me so badly. Indeed, despite the anger at this fucked up situation, what hurts the most is the fact that I'll never see him again. I'll never see any of them again. Minutes turn to hours and I continuously sob with no sign of reprieve. Eventually, all falls silent and the fire goes out. Everything fades into darkness on this moonless night. Everything but me. If there was ever a moment for nothingness to claim me, it is now. But that would be a mercy, and mercy is not what's meant for me. Broken heart, it's the sweetest of things. You must be loving this, you twisted motherfucker. I squeeze the bedding tightly, hearing my palms audibly strain at the exercise. Of all the moments, of course it's this one, when the whispers return. Despair. So delicious. Fuck you. If Ranok didn't break me, then surely you won't do it. Go back to poorly imitating children's books. I have my own poorly written romance to live through. This newfound resolve allows me to stabilize myself. My breath slows down, and I decide that, indeed, Ranok won't break me. I won't give him the satisfaction. I won't be Tano, huddled in the dirt, nor trying to force him to see my value. I wanted to stay at his side, to aid him through better or worse. If he doesn't want that, that's his choice. I'm better than this, and if he cannot see it, it's his loss, not mine. And with that, I finally drift to a strained sleep. To be continued. Oh, sweet. Jesus. Well, I can't say that I didn't see that coming, because obviously I saw that coming. I knew that was the plan all along to leave the human in Strandbard. But secretly a part of me hoped that that wasn't going to happen. But, you know, these stories don't all have a happy ending or even happy middles or beginnings or whatever. So yeah. I mean, there is still the chance that Ranok might, change his mind. But he kind of seems like a very duty-bound wolf. And it would be kind of interesting if this ended up turning into a story where it's not with Ranok anymore and it turns out to be like with whoever the human gets saddled with, or maybe Ranok by himself. And yeah, but I guess we're gonna have to wait to see what happens in the next updates, because this is still the second part of chapter 8. There's still, I'm assuming, 2 more parts at least, if I recall correctly. So yeah. Anywho, so what are your thoughts? I can assume some of you are going to be, mad, or you're going to be relating it to when a certain other wolf decided to be a little bit of a, prick and, just dump their human. If you don't know what I'm referencing to, it's probably a video or a video series that's going to follow this one, in 2 days. But yeah. So anyways, I recorded this all the way through, but it's gonna be split into separate episodes somehow. It's currently 3 hours and 37 minutes, but it's maybe, like, give or take 20 minutes of just bad takes. But still, it's 3 hours, so that's, what, 3 episodes worth? Or maybe 2 episodes worth? I don't know. We'll see. But yeah. Well, I mean, no story has always a happy thing to it. There has to be drama, and there's certainly a lot of drama here. And obviously you guys didn't get to see that intimate scene because I'm gonna have to cut it out. Even if I'm still recording it, I still have to cut it out. But yeah. It is all the more devastating when you just have an intimate scene with your partner and then all of a sudden, oh, by the way, tomorrow I'm not gonna be seeing you anymore because I'm gonna dump you in this town that you are not familiar with people you don't know. And you didn't get to say goodbye to your friends, so yeah. My bad. And I guess it was also appropriate to show that Ranok and Tano did have history. It was kind of obvious, obviously. Because it's kind of like, see, dude, you keep doing this over and over again. You keep, you think you're doing the right thing by the person, but you're really not. You're doing the opposite. So yeah, I'm spent. I'm emotionally spent right now, so I don't know what to say anymore. I'm gonna have to come up with intros and outros for when I eventually cut up this whole recording. But yeah, anyways, thank you all for watching / listening. If you would like to play Far Beyond the World yourself, and this build actually contains the previous chapter, if I recall. Come on, load up. It contains the current release, which is Chapter 8, Part 2, but also the whole of Chapter 8, Part 1, and then the whole of Chapter 7. But you still have to download the previous build from the itch page. But I think that in the next builds, it should already be integrated, so we won't have to be doing that ever again, thankfully. The hell was that? Oh, what was the music? But anyways, so yeah. What was I saying? Oh yeah, if you want to play Far Beyond the World yourself, you can find it over on itch. And obviously I can't link to it because the Far Beyond the World videos were what was flagged for everyone on YouTube as being adult content. So thankfully I didn't get a strike for that. But anyways, I will link to the creator's page, and I don't know if they have a Twitter, like a Far Beyond the World Twitter. I don't remember. But I will link to anything pertaining to that, which will have a direct link to Far Beyond the World on itch. And they do have a Patreon, so if you want to support them and get early access to the next part, where we, get dumped in Strandbard, then, you can subscribe to Kael Tiger's Patreon. Do it. It's worth a lot of, it's worth it. Do it, come on. And anyways, they do have a Discord, which you can find. And you can see it right here. And they do have merch, and I actually have the little, they're cell phone charms, but I would kind of probably use them as keychains, but I still have them in their little container. And yeah, I like them. That's why I want to keep them right there. I don't want to actually use them. But anyways, yeah. So I guess I'll see you guys in the next episode, which will probably, I don't know if I'll do Remember the Flowers first and then this, because that one will only be probably one episode. So it'll probably be Remember the Flowers, then Far Beyond the World, and then I'm actually doing a new story that I was introduced to by one of the developers of that story, which is superheroes and stuff. But that one's actually going to get bumped by this and Remember the Flowers, unfortunately. But so I'm very sorry to the developer who asked me very nicely if I could do their story on here. But these people demand this. Anyways, so yeah. I guess I'll see you in the next episode. Bye-bye.